Here with Alvin Williams with E-Building Concepts, and we're going to talk about 3D printing homes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for taking the time to ask me a few questions about 3D printing homes. I'm excited about giving as many answers on the topic as I possibly can to hopefully clarify some of the misconceptions that might be out there about 3D printing homes and what it can do for the community. So thank you for taking the time to answer or ask me a few questions on the subject.
Mr. Williams, a lot of people want to know, what is 3D printing and what is 3D printing a house?
Well, that's a good question. The fundamental question is, what is 3D printing? So 3D printing, most people are familiar with the smaller desktop printers that make the little plastic figurines on the desk. So 3D printing is nothing more than taking a standard or a computer generated model from the computer or out of the computer, and software slices that material or slices that model in layers, and then what the program then does is put XYZ coordinates on that sliced model. So the machine, the XYZ coordinates, what that does is that programs the machine and tells the machine where to deposit material and where not to deposit material. So, and it does that layer by layer until it gets to the top of the wall or the top of the item, and you have a now three-dimensional item sitting on your 3D printer. So what that has to do with 3D printing homes? Well, what E-Building Concepts has done is develop the machine large enough to 3D print houses in this manner. So instead of dealing with a small figurine that's coming out of a smaller 3D printer, we have an entire, and by the way, the material being used is concrete. So you have now a three-dimensional concrete home as that object. So hopefully that, explains the 3D printing process.
Okay.
So
I have another question for you. What are the impacts of removing formwork?
So the question is, what are the impacts of using formwork? Well, traditional construction, for the most part, when you're dealing with concrete, for a lot of what they do is they set up like a mold, like you would do a mold, making a mold of something. So where they would use concrete forms is if they need a mold or make a mold for a column or concrete, any type of construction that requires the placement of concrete usually has a form that they pour, or I shouldn't say pour, place the concrete inside. So now when the concrete hardens up, then you strip away those forms, and that leaves a process, or that is a process called lost form work, which generates a lot of waste. It's building a structure to pour concrete inside of another structure. So it's kind of like you're doing two things just to get one thing out of it. So traditional construction has a lot of form work that's required in it, and that becomes also very wasteful as well. So it's not a. And then another little side note too, surprisingly, Thomas Edison, out of all the inventions that he had sought after and made, forming or utilizing concrete in such a manner to where it didn't require wooden forms to be built everywhere and around everything in order to make this concrete structure. So that's just a little side note. But yeah, Thomas Edison spent more time supposedly trying to figure that out than he spent on all of his other inventions combined. Now that's from the books. So but so form work, yeah, that's definitely a big elimination of not having form work. That the concrete 3D printer is basically making the forms that can later be poured with concrete or place concrete inside the form.
Okay.
So it's no longer a lost form art, so to speak. So
okay.
so.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
The next question is, how is reinforcement incorporated into 3D printed elements?
Okay, so the question is, how is reinforcement incorporated into the 3D printing elements? So just like you would have traditional rebar and steel components inside of poured concrete, structural elements and things, that doesn't change. That is still a part of building and using concrete as a structural component in the process. So that doesn't change. So the rebar is placed inside of these wooden removable forms, like going back to your last question. So those wooden forms still have the steel placed inside of it, and you pour the concrete all over inside the form, and then you strip the form away. Well, again, we're 3D printing those forms. You still have the steel inside the concrete form, so to speak, and then you fill it up with concrete. So the process doesn't change at all using structural. All the structural components, there might be some instances dealing with how the 3D printer might have to 3D print around steel that's already in place, and we just need the form of the printer to make the exterior form of the wall that later be filled in. But for the most part, structural components should stay in their locations like they are in traditional construction with concrete. So it's not a problem.
All right. The next question is the cement content of the extrusion material reasonable and justifiable?
So the cementitious contents of the 3D printer is basically it's a trade secret. It's a proprietary item. There are several different components that go into making the concrete stackable and be able to stand up on itself and layer itself like it would in the 3D printing process. So yes, there's several items or ingredients that go into the manufacturing of that material, and that is a trade secret or proprietary that we don't want to disclose, sort of the secret sauce, so to speak. So but yeah, that's it's definitely not regular concrete. If that is a misconception out there, then regular concrete that comes out of the back of a standard concrete truck, it is not that type of material, so that won't work. So
All right.
hopefully that answered that question.
Yes. Does 3D printing produce optimal geometries?
So does 3D printing produce optimal geometries? So that is a resounding yes. When it comes to the balance of producing a structure that is appealing to look at, and you're trying to balance what the architect is trying to convey to the public with their artistical drawings, and also to what the client might want. The client might not want a traditional 90-degree corner wall. They might want curves, or they might want interesting features in the wall that might not be, or I should say be very costly in order to reproduce using traditional construction. So geometries, the 3D printer, if you can pretty much, the 3D printer, the way it behaves, what it does is you're only limited really by your imagination. If you can model it, but if you can model it on the computer, then you can 3D print it. So
you were saying to me, Mr. Williams, that 3D printers can print intricate rounding walls, or
absolutely.
Anything that, say for instance, if I wanted a intricate, I think a facade, so to speak, would a 3D printer create that, or is that something that a traditional construction will have to do?
No, absolutely. Any facade that is being done on the exterior of a building right now can also be the same, or it can look the same. The main part of the structure is 3D printed.
Okay.
So if someone wants siding on the outside of the building, they can attach siding to the outside of it. If someone wanted brick on the outside of the 3D printed building, you can still put brick on the outside of the 3D print. If somebody wanted wood, you can attach wood to the outside of it. So it doesn't stop that. We believe that adding, we believe, E-Building Concepts believes that adding a wall on the outside of another wall is a very wasteful product, a wasteful attempt at trying to produce a wall. Once we create the wall with the 3D printer, the wall is there. That's the way now. And of course, if you want to cover the wall with any additional materials, that's going to do nothing but drive the price of the final product up. But if you can get by, you have a concrete wall if you stick with what the 3D printer has left you with.
Mr. Williams, is the resulting element pleasing to look at?
Oh, absolutely. So the question is, resulting element pleasing to look at. Oh my God! If you like looking at intricate shapes, if you like looking at different, get out away of the cookie cutter style homes. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you can come up with any intricate, interesting shape you can come up with on a traditional builder, on a traditional 3D printer that most people are. If you can come up with an interesting shape on that 3D printer on your desktop, then you can come up with a home that's shaped just like that. So it really, the sky's the limit, so to speak. The limit is really on what your own imagination is. So if you can't model it up and design it up in the computer, then obviously the machine isn't going to replicate what you wanted to show you, or what you wanted to do. So yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Williams, so is a 3D printed building worth it?
Is the 3D printed building worth it? I would say unequivocally yes. Traditional construction exceeds on so many different levels when it comes to cost, speed, accuracy, efficiency. We're holding ourselves back if we don't take advantage of the opportunity to assist in the way things are being built today. We are 4 million homes behind with the industry keeping up with the amount of homes that we need just to put the people that are in demand of a house or housing right now. We're 4 million homes behind. If we don't do something now, that number is only going to grow. So is it worth it? Absolutely, yes, it's worth it. It's worth it to get on it now, get started, not miss the opportunity to take advantage of getting ahead of this thing and try to be a little more proactive with it. We're already being reactive to it now, and that's prevalent in areas where Skid Row in California, everyone's probably heard of that particular area, in need of desperate housing. Any place, any person you see on the street today that is needing or without a home. 3D printing is worth it on so many different levels, and again, it would be a really terrible thing if we don't take advantage and try to get ahead of the housing crisis that we have right now. So we absolutely need a different way of getting people in homes. So it's worth it.
Okay, so Mr. Williams, how long does it take to 3D print a house?
Well, that depends on how long does it take to 3D print a house. So that all depends on the size of the building that's being 3D printed. Obviously, if it's smaller, we can get it done a lot quicker than we could if it was a larger structure. having a lot more walls internally and externally. So yeah, it really depends on the size of the project. But if you're hearing numbers or matter of 48 hours as opposed to days, again, it really depends on the size of the structure. So I can tell you this: traditional construction, sitting side by side to 3D printing, you're eliminating, for the same size structure, for example, a 2,000 square foot structure, that could take you months to finish all the interior and exterior walls. 3D printing the process should get that down to the days, maybe a week, maybe less, depending on how many hours the 3D printer is actually in motion. Depending on how long the machine is in motion and there's no breaks, you keep the machine fed with concrete, the machine will just keep moving. So you're looking at a 2,000 square foot structure, for example, could take you 3 months to finish the shell of it, interior and exterior walls. You could probably have that done within under a week's time.
Okay, so you said that the interior and the exterior walls are printed by the 3D printer.
Yes.
So what about the roof?
The roof right now, that is to be added to the structure like it traditionally is now. There's a wooden frame, truss system. However, you know, traditionally the roof would be put onto the building. That doesn't change. So it's not replacing the roofers yet. I'm sure there's probably a machine out there right now that's working on that. But we don't have that machine yet. We're just focusing on the walls and anything that's requiring a wall of some sort to be 3D printed.
Mr. Williams, are there any other traditionally installed items?
Oh, okay. Yeah, excellent question. So other items would be like windows, doors, plumbing, electrical. All of those items will still be installed in the home like they are traditionally. So yeah, those trades don't have to worry about things right now, at least by us. I'm sure there's other manufacturers out there that are eliminating or trying to see how they can fill in the gap, I should say, right now. And I say that because even with the workers that think they will be displaced by this machine, they don't have anything to worry about right now. If you plan on your business being a traditional wall or framing layer, you know, that those jobs, if you're thinking that in the future, 10 years down the road, you're still going to be erecting walls like they do now, you're sadly you're setting your business up for failure. So that's a dying art that's about to take place. So yeah, traditional items like outside of the walls being erected will still be used in the construction process of 3D printing homes. So excellent question though.
Okay. I got another question for you.
Okay.
How does the 3D printer knows what to print?
So how does the 3D printer know what to print? Well, without getting really technical with it, it starts out as a model, a 3D model on the computer that you might see a lot of times. And once that model is finalized, then you send that model into a program that basically slices up the 3D model in a way that your printer can work from. And once that slicing program does its magic, then it's sent out to the 3D printer, and the printer just replicates what's necessary to make that 3D model. And then in our case, it's a home. It's a full-size home. But yeah, very interesting process, and it goes all the way back to 3D stereolithography. I believe that's the name. Forgive me if I'm saying the word wrong. It goes back to 1986 actually. A man, I forget his name, but He did create the entire 3D printing process, so to speak. So fast forward to today, we're just now capitalizing off of that invention, that I believe retired, or the invention deadline ended in 2012, 13, 14-ish, somewhere in there. So once that patent had met its ending, then that's why you saw an influx of 3D printers. So everybody comes on the scene all of a sudden with these 3D plastic printers that are very, some of them are very interesting, some of them are very unique, and at the end of the day, they're 3D printing using that technology from 1986. So instead of saying 3D or stereolithography, I like saying 3D printer myself. So
Okay, Mr. Williams, where's 3D printing concrete being used right now?
right now there's about 2 players in the concrete printing industry right now in the United States that are doing it on a commercial home printing level right now. So we're hoping to be the 3rd in the country. So with that being said, United States has very few, maybe a handful of people in this industry, and our friends over on the other side of the water, China, Dubai, Denmark, all of these places are using 3D printing of structures at an incredible level. It's just that we're just starting to get acclimated to this machine and how it does what it does. And so right now, but other countries, for example, China's right now 3D printing 5-story structures, and we're barely getting the first floor done on buildings. So yeah, we got a long ways to go to catch up, that I'm afraid. But yeah, it's being used all over the world right now. We're just last to take advantage of it.
Okay, the next question is, how can technology improve construction sustainability?
Oh, good question. Well, the first thing that comes to mind with 3D printing, and understanding all of the other ways of making an item, whether it be CNC or carving or any other type of form of creating an item. So sustainability wise, 3D printing cuts out a lot of waste. There's a tremendous amount of waste that's being done on the construction site right now. I'm being told for a standard size house might produce a couple, 2 or 3 tons worth of waste, boards and things like broken block, wood that's been cut and things like that. When you add the weight of all those items up in a pile, you get some serious tonnage, and that the sustainability of 3D printing and using material where we need it, and only where we need it, that cuts out the waste, that reduces the landfill, the garbage that's going in our landfills and things like that. So sustainability, it's and again, when you don't have when you're depositing material where it needs to be deposited, and you're not left with a bunch of excess wasted material, then that translates to less material that the batch plant has to come up with, which reduces our CO2 carbon footprint level. And then on the other side of that would be the fact that we're using such a durable material that's able to withstand a lot of Mother Nature's forces. We don't have to deal with our material being ate up by termites and things like that. Wood boring insects do wreak havoc on a home. So any homes that are out there being brought up by wood, and I started out as a carpenter, so I love wood. I love how you can mold it and shape it and form it into what it is you want it to ultimately look like. But it's we not only do I love it, the insects love it. there's insects that eat it and need to eat it in order to survive. So it's not the best material to withstand Mother Nature. And so yeah, sustainability all across the board. There's things that are being experienced with the less wasteful art of 3D printing in the construction process. So we're excited about being able to help out in the grand scheme of things with Mother Nature and us not doing so much harm to the earth. So absolutely, excellent process for that.
All right, Mr. Williams, this is our very last question for today.
Okay.
And everybody wants to know, where will 3D printing be in 10 years from now?
We believe what we want to have happen, our machines are everywhere. 10 years from now, you'll go down the street and you'll see homes that have a few people on the job site and just manning this machine, going down the street, just erecting neighborhoods in fractions of a time that we take now, and getting people in homes a lot quicker, less headache, less red tape, less waiting. So we're hoping that this process 10 years from now, we're already looking at 3D printing on the moon and Mars. There's a couple of our competitors that are working on machines doing that. So watching them figure out how we're going to do this on the moon and Mars, we are determined to see how we can do this here on Earth to help out the people here on Earth and in the United States suffering for the lack of housing that we're in right now. The demand of housing is incredible right now, and they could only wish for a faster, more efficient way of building homes. So this is 10 years from now, this thing, you would not be able to go to a construction site with a truckload of guys talking about doing anything anymore. 10 years from now, that will, I can picture that being such the craziest idea, to have a bunch of guys jump up out of a truck and say they're going to erect a house. We'll have a machine one day possibly being brought out on a place where you want to have a house being done. By the 3D printing process will not only be done by just doing walls, we'll be able to do windows, doors, possibly plumbing, possibly electrical work, all of that, all 3D printed 10 years from now. Just bring a machine to the site, tell it what program you want it to do, and bam, hours later, or maybe down even into the minutes later, you have a house. So
is there any last words or any other things you want to say that you haven't already said in our interview?
Oh, well, I would just like to say, I thank you for the opportunity of taking the time out to ask me these questions. I can talk about this subject till the cows come home. I love it inside and out. I live it, sleep it, eat it, and everything else it. So, E-Building Concepts. We're here in Tampa, Florida, and we hope to get the message out to people, let them know that there's a better way of getting into a home instead of waiting on the traditional way of things being built. So we're E-Building Concepts. We're here to stay, and at the end of the day, we want to see people in homes, and we're just doing we're just answering our calling. Yeah, so
I thank you for having this interview with us today.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.